In this section, we're going to learn how to multiply fractions. And before we do that, we're going to try and kind of explore it a little bit and see if we can figure out what's going on. Okay, so first of all, I say, let's just talk about this for a second. What is half of 10? If I asked you, for what is half of 10, you would probably tell me, well, of course, Teresa, that is 5. Okay, no problem. Well, what is half of 6? Well, if we took half of 6, then that would be 3. What about half of 2? Well, if we took half of 2, that would be 1. But what if we took half of 1? Well, you would probably say, okay, well, that's a half. Now, did you notice what we're doing here? Your first instinct is to say that we are dividing by 2. But think about what the keyword of means. Do you remember that as being one of our keywords? The keyword of means to multiply. So if I'm taking half of something, it really means to multiply by 1/2. So I'm really multiplying by 1/2. Okay, so using that same premise then, what do you think half of a half would be? So if I were to take 1/2 of, means to multiply, 1/2, well, we may not know exactly what that's going to equal. But think about it in terms of money. If you had a $1/2, which would be 50 cents, and somebody said, give me half of that, then probably off the top of your head you'd say, okay, here's a quarter, 25 cents. Well, that is the truth. A half of a half is 1/4 or 1/4. Okay, let's do just a little bit more exploration before we get into the rules. Let's look at multiplication of fractions in picture form. Let's say that we had this picture. How many of these are shaded compared to the whole? Well, we would have 3 out of 4 that are shaded here. True? Okay. What if I wanted to take half of that? If I had those same 3 shaded blocks, but in this time I wanted to mark this into half. So rather than have 4 blocks, then I would have 8 blocks. True? Now that 3/4 is half of what I have now. Well, what do I have now here? Now I have 3 blocks shaded out of 8. Wow. Let's see if we can figure out a pattern here. If I took half of 3/4, then now I have 3/8. And earlier, when we took half of a half, we had 1/4. Can you see any way that we might be getting this 3 out of these two numerators and this 8 out of these two denominators? Looks like they're just multiplying them, doesn't it? Does the same rule apply for this? How do we get a 1 out of these two numerators? And how do we get a 4 out of these two denominators? Well, again, it looks like we're multiplying, doesn't it? That is the rule for multiplying fractions. We multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom.